afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. This year, 2016, is likely to be the hottest year ever, with average global temperatures 1.2 degrees Celsius higher than they were when measurements began in the 19th century. The World Meteorological Organization, that's the UN's weather agency, says temperature rises are getting close to the limit set by the Global Climate Agreement adopted in Paris last year. Scientists, though, say this year's temperatures were boosted by the El Niño weather event. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh reports.
A planet that seems fragile from space. The sun descends on a world that is gradually getting warmer. A provisional assessment by the UN's World Meteorological Organization shows that this year is set to be the hottest recorded globally in recent times.
It's likely that we will reach this year 1.2 degree warming level, and we are going to a bit the wrong direction if you think of this 1.5 degree warming level, which was agreed last year in Paris.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
Last year, world leaders reached an agreement in Paris to curb warming by limiting man-made carbon emissions. There's a target to keep the rise in average global temperatures to well below 2 degrees Celsius, and countries will pursue efforts to keep it to 1.5 degrees. There's to be a review of progress every 5 years, so commitments can be made tougher. The long-term aim for CO2 and other warming gases is that emissions should peak as soon as possible, and then be cut rapidly to the point where they're emitted no more than nature can soak up.
We're already more than 1 degree warmer than we were in the pre-industrial period. The Paris Agreement has set targets of about 1.5 or 2 degrees, so we are getting closer and closer to these goals set by the governments, and to realise those goals will mean dramatic cuts in greenhouse gas emissions over the next few decades, and that will be very difficult.
The report also shows that there's been a levelling off in carbon emissions, perhaps because of the action countries have already begun to take. But earlier this year, on the campaign trail, the president-elect said that he believed that man-made global warming was a hoax.
I think it's a big scam for a lot of people to make a lot of money. In the meantime, China is eating our lunch because they don't partake in all of the rules and regulations that we do.
The activity of one of the Earth's natural weather systems, known as El Niño, has contributed to the spike in recent global temperatures. That's now at an end, and so it's unlikely that next year will be as hot as the past few. But scientists believe that man-made climate change is still pushing global temperatures upwards and threatening irreversibly to damage the planet's delicate ecosystems. Palab Ghosh, BBC News.
Well, our science editor, David Shukman, is here with me now. So how concerned should we be?
Well, it's the third year in a row that we've seen record temperatures, so that's in itself kind of interesting and possibly concerning. But what really matters is how this is nudging the planet closer and closer to limits of warming that scientists have established as relatively safe. So a rise of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels is always seen as a kind of benchmark. Well, we're now at 1.2, as we've been hearing, which takes us really into difficult territory, because the whole point of what's at stake here is, can you turn the global economy round, move it away from fossil fuels, bring carbon emissions down in time to head off the worst effects of global warming?
As we saw in Palab's report, new man in the White House, a different approach to climate change.
Well, yes, I mean, it's ironic that just as the Paris Agreement comes into force on November the 4th, the first time the world has got together to try to tackle this problem in a united way, and the cornerstone of that was the relationship between America and China, particularly Barack Obama, put a huge effort into making this work. Now, if the new guy calls climate change a hoax, and no one really knows what he's going to do, threats to pull out of the Paris Agreement, at the very least it's creating massive uncertainty. At the worst, in terms of tackling climate change, it could actually dismantle the whole system.
David, thank you very much, David Shukman.